It was an ordinary Friday evening, and Emily had just finished her routine Costco run. She had been to the store countless times before, but tonight felt different. The air was colder, the parking lot quieter, and for some reason the store's usual energy didn't comfort her as it normally did. She walked through the aisles, throwing items into her cart with practiced ease, not thinking much about what she was doing. The hum of fluorescent lights above her and the sound of carts being pushed around created an oddly calming rhythm. But now, as she stepped out of the store and into the parking lot, a strange unease settled over her. The usual bustling energy of Costco's parking lot was absent tonight, replaced by silence and an eerie calm. Emily pulled her jacket tight around her body as the crisp air bit at her skin. She looked around and saw only a few scattered cars and people walking to their vehicles. She approached her car, her mind momentarily distracted by thoughts of dinner, maybe pasta, or that new recipe she had been wanting to try. But then, her gaze landed on the man. He stood a few rows away, his face illuminated by the glow of his phone. He seemed harmless at first, but as Emily moved closer, she noticed something about the way he stood. He wasn't in a hurry, no hurried steps or anxious movements. He was just there. Their eyes met. She froze. For a split second, the world felt like it stopped. His gaze was intense, far too intense for her comfort. His eyes lingered on her for longer than she thought was normal. And then, just as quickly as their eyes locked, he looked away, pretending to focus on his phone again. Emily shook her head. It was nothing. She was just being paranoid. People stared all the time. But as she began unloading her groceries into the trunk, a nagging feeling began to creep up her spine. She quickly dismissed it, no need to overreact. Yet when she glanced up again, she found him watching her again. His gaze was steady, unwavering. A chill ran down her spine. Her stomach clenched. It was that same feeling, the one that told her something wasn't right. Her heart began to race. She slammed the trunk shut, the sound echoing too loudly in the otherwise quiet parking lot. She hurried to her car and locked the doors before even sitting down. It was fine. She was overreacting. But when she started the engine, the sound of her car's engine felt strangely loud. She adjusted her rear-view mirror, trying to calm herself, but what she saw made her blood run cold. The man hadn't moved. He was standing still, his eyes fixed directly on her. Panic surged within her. It wasn't just a glance anymore. He was watching her every move. Emily quickly put the car in reverse, her hands trembling as she backed out of the parking spot. She glanced back one last time. The man was walking toward her. Not quickly, but deliberately, with purpose. It wasn't a coincidence. Her breath hitched in her chest. She stepped on the gas, trying to calm herself, trying to shake the fear that had settled deep within her. But the man's movements weren't random. He was following her. She told herself to stay calm. People were strange all the time. Maybe he was just going to his car, maybe he wasn't even looking at her. But as she made the turn to leave the parking lot, she stole a quick glance in the rearview mirror. The man's gray sedan was right behind her. Her heart hammered in her chest. It wasn't a coincidence. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel, forcing herself to think clearly. She needed to get out of here. She couldn't let him follow her back to her apartment. Her mind raced as she navigated the streets, making sharp turns and trying to lose him. But every time she glanced back, the gray sedan was still there, tailing her from a distance. He was persistent, like a shadow that refused to leave. Panic clawed at her chest. What was she supposed to do? Should she call the police now, or wait? How much longer could she keep this up? She took another turn, hoping to shake him off, but he followed. His car was never far behind. She glanced at the time. It had been nearly 20 minutes. 20 minutes of him following her, never once breaking off. She was no longer just uneasy. She was terrified. Her breathing became shallow, and her thoughts began to spiral. What did he want? What if he was dangerous? She had to stay calm. She could handle this. She wasn't a child. She wasn't some helpless person. She could think through this, but the fear was making it impossible to focus. What if he had been following her all along? What if this wasn't his first night doing this? What if he was just waiting for the right moment? She checked the rearview mirror again. His gray sedan was still there, too close for comfort. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was getting closer, that his presence in her life was becoming more than just a coincidence. Desperately, she looked around, scanning the streets for some kind of safe place. And then she saw it. Her heart skipped a beat. A police station. It wasn't far. She could make it there. She could get help. She slammed her foot on the accelerator, the engine roaring as the gray sedan followed closely behind. Her breath quickened as she sped toward the police station, praying she could make it in time. But when she passed the station, her heart sank. The sedan didn't stop. He was still right there, following her. Emily didn't think. She took a hard turn into a nearby convenience store parking lot, hoping she could lose him there. She parked far away from the entrance, trying to stay hidden, her eyes locked on the gray sedan across the street. The man was still sitting there, her breath caught in her throat. What now? The minutes dragged on like hours. Emily's mind raced as she debated what to do. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her friend Sarah. "Hey, what's going on? You okay?" Emily didn't respond. She couldn't focus on anything other than the gray sedan and the man in it. He hadn't moved, not a single inch. Her hand was shaking as she pulled her phone from her pocket and dialed 911. 911. Operator. 911, what's your emergency? Emily's voice cracked. I think I'm being followed. I'm at store name on street. There's a man in a gray sedan. He's been following me for at least 20 minutes. I'm scared. 911 operator. Stay where you are. Are you safe right now? Emily glanced out the window again, her pulse racing. The gray sedan hadn't moved. He was still sitting there, staring at her car. Yes, I think so, but he's still out there, just sitting there in his car. I don't know what to do. 911 operator. We've dispatched a unit. Stay in your car and keep the doors locked. The officers will be there shortly. Keep your phone on and stay on the line. Emily felt like the seconds were dragging by. She couldn't stop staring at the sedan. She could feel the weight of the man's presence even though he hadn't moved. Every passing minute made her feel more exposed, more vulnerable. The world outside her car felt far away, and her hands were trembling uncontrollably. Then, after what felt like an eternity, a police car pulled into the parking lot. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know if she should feel relief or fear. The officers got out, walking toward the gray sedan. Emily watched them, her eyes fixed on the scene, her heart pounding in her chest. For a moment, everything was still. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she could see the officers questioning the man in the sedan. They didn't seem alarmed, but the man didn't seem calm either. He appeared defensive, his arms crossed, but he didn't get out of the car. After a few minutes, the officers gave him a warning, and he started his car. Slowly, he drove away, disappearing into the night. The police stayed for a few more minutes, asking Emily if she was okay. They assured her that they would keep an eye on the area, but for now, the man had left. But Emily didn't feel safe. The relief that came with his departure was fleeting. Her hands were still shaking, her heart still racing. She thanked the officers and drove home, but the weight of what had happened stayed with her long after she parked her car. As she sat in her apartment, the silence around her was deafening. She stared at her phone, Sarah's text still unanswered. "I'm okay," Emily typed, but she wasn't sure she believed it. The fear that had overtaken her still lingered. The feeling of being watched, the uncertainty, the fear that something worse could happen next time. Those emotions would stay with her. And though she knew she was safe for now, she couldn't shake the feeling that the man was still out there somewhere, watching. It was 2:45 a.m. when Emily clocked in for her shift at Costco. She had been working the night shift for over a year now, and she was used to the quiet of the warehouse after hours. Most of the customers were gone, and the few who remained were either browsing or grabbing last-minute items before the store closed. Emily liked it that way. The night shifts allowed her to work in peace, away from the chaos of daytime shopping. She kept to herself, doing her job quietly, stacking shelves and organizing aisles. The fluorescent lights above hummed softly, a constant backdrop to the stillness that had become a comforting rhythm for her. She grabbed a pallet jack and wheeled it to the back, preparing to restock a section of frozen foods. The cold air of the freezer section hit her face as she pushed the jack into the aisle. It felt good to be away from the heat of the store. She was alone here, the only sound being the soft roll of the jack on the polished concrete floor. That's when she noticed him. A man was standing at the end of the frozen foods aisle. His posture was stiff, almost unnatural, like he was waiting for something, or someone. He stood there staring at the shelves, not moving, just watching. Emily tried to ignore him at first. Maybe he was just another late-night shopper. But there was something off about him. He didn't seem like he was just browsing. His gaze never shifted from the shelves. His eyes didn't flicker with curiosity but remained fixed on the same spot, his body rigid, tense. Emily's instincts flared. She felt a prickle on the back of her neck, the kind of unease she couldn't shake. She tried to convince herself it was nothing, but a nagging feeling lingered. "Can I help you find something?" Emily asked, trying to sound casual, though her voice felt too loud in the silence. The man didn't answer immediately. Emily took a few cautious steps closer, her eyes scanning his figure. He was tall, wearing a worn-out jacket and dark jeans, his face partially obscured by the dim lighting. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost a murmur. "I'm just looking for something," he said, his tone flat and emotionless. "All right," Emily replied, forcing a smile. "If you need anything, let me know." She backed away slowly, the hairs on her arms standing up. There was no reason to feel threatened, she told herself, but something in his demeanor didn't sit right. As she pushed the pallet jack down the aisle, she glanced over her shoulder. He was still there, standing motionless, watching her. She hurried to the next section of the store, trying to shake off the discomfort. But as she turned down another aisle, there he was again, just a few steps behind her. Her heart skipped a beat. What the hell? She kept walking, her pace quickening as she tried to distance herself. Every turn she took, he seemed to be right behind her. It was like he was following her every step. Emily felt her breath catch in her throat. She didn't want to panic, but the feeling of being watched, of being followed, was unmistakable. Her mind raced. Was she overreacting? Maybe he was just another customer wandering around. But this didn't feel like just a coincidence. She took a sharp turn into the electronics section, hoping to lose him in the rows of televisions and gadgets. She scanned the aisles frantically. No sign of him. Okay, maybe it was nothing. But as she began to push the pallet jack back toward the front of the store, she saw him again. He was standing at the entrance of the aisle, his back to her, but she could feel his presence like a weight in the air. Her pulse raced. She froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. Should she go find a manager? Call security? Her eyes flicked to the store's exit. She could leave. She could walk out of the store and drive home. But as she started to turn around, she heard his voice again. "You don't have to leave, Emily," he said. Her heart pounded in her chest. She hadn't told him her name. She didn't even know this man. How did he know who she was? "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly, but she forced herself to sound calm. He didn't respond right away. Slowly he turned around, his face illuminated by the harsh overhead lights. His eyes were cold, unblinking. He looked at her like he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "I know who you are," he said, his voice steady, almost too calm. "You're always here at night, working alone." A chill ran through Emily. Her thoughts raced. She had no idea who this man was or how he knew her, but the reality of the situation began to sink in. "I don't know you," Emily said, backing away slowly, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone. "I'm calling the police." The man didn't flinch. He stood there, staring at her, his expression unreadable. He wasn't threatening, but his silence was more unsettling than anything else. It was like he was waiting for her to make the next move. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," he said, his voice low. "You're just going to make things worse." Before Emily could respond, she heard the sound of footsteps behind her. A manager appeared, his eyes scanning the scene. "Everything okay here?" the manager asked, looking between Emily and the man. The stranger didn't say anything. Instead, he turned and walked toward the exit, his pace slow but deliberate. Emily stood frozen, her phone in her hand, not sure whether to make the call. The manager watched the man leave, then turned to Emily, his face tense. "Are you all right?" Emily didn't know what to say. She was shaken, but she didn't want to seem overly dramatic. "Yeah," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think so." The manager nodded, but the concern in his eyes was obvious. "If he comes back, let me know immediately, and don't hesitate to call the police." As the man disappeared into the night, Emily took a shaky breath. She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, that the encounter was far from over. For the rest of her shift, she couldn't focus. Every time she turned a corner or heard footsteps echoing in the store, her heart would race. She kept glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see him there, standing in the shadows, waiting. When her shift ended and she finally walked out of the store, she glanced around the parking lot nervously. She didn't see him, but she couldn't shake the feeling that he was still watching her from somewhere, hidden in the dark. The next day, when Emily told her friend Sarah about the incident, she found out something even more chilling. Sarah had worked a shift at Costco the week before, and the same man had followed her too. "Emily, he's been doing this to everyone," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "He knows everything about us." It was a Friday evening, and Emily was trying to finish her shopping quickly. It had been a long week, and she was looking forward to getting home and relaxing. The store wasn't too crowded, and she easily navigated the aisles of Costco, throwing a few essentials into her cart. She needed a couple of bags of frozen vegetables, some snacks for the kids, and of course, bulk toilet paper. After she finished scanning her items at the self-checkout, she began to push her cart toward the exit, not noticing much around her. She was lost in her thoughts, making a mental list of what else she needed to get done when she got home. As she walked past the magazines, something made her stop. She didn't know why. Maybe it was a gut feeling. But when she glanced up, she noticed a man standing a few feet away from her. He wasn't looking at anything in particular, but his eyes seemed to be on her. Emily didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he's just waiting for someone, she told herself. But when she turned to leave, she couldn't shake the feeling that he was still watching her. The unease crept up her spine like a cold chill. She hurried to the self-checkout, scanning the last of her items quickly, trying to get out of there as soon as possible. But as she pushed her cart toward the door, she saw him again, standing by the exit, watching her, still not looking at anything else. Her heart skipped a beat. She quickly turned away and walked faster, heading straight for her car. "I'm just overthinking this," she tried to convince herself. "It's nothing." But with each step she took, the feeling of being watched intensified. She couldn't shake the anxiety rising in her chest. As she reached her car, she heard footsteps behind her. She froze. "Number, please don't," she told herself. "It's fine, I'm just being paranoid." But the footsteps kept coming. She turned to see the man again, just a few feet away, moving steadily toward her. Her breath caught in her throat. Her keys were in her hand, but they felt useless. She fumbled for the car key, trying to unlock the door faster. She couldn't look at him now. She didn't want him to think she was afraid, but she could feel him behind her, his presence suffocating. Emily, muttering to herself, come on, just unlock." Finally, the door clicked open. She jumped in, slamming the door shut and locking it. But she didn't start the engine immediately. She had to look. She turned around and saw him standing near the rear of her car, still staring at her. She could see his faint smile from the corner of her eye, and it sent a chill down her spine. His eyes didn't seem friendly. There was something off about them. Emily, whispering to herself, "What does he want?" For a moment she considered staying put, but then she remembered something. "I can't just sit here." She knew she had to leave, but the man made her feel trapped. She quickly started the car, glancing at her rearview mirror. The gray sedan was now moving slowly. It wasn't just a coincidence. He was following her. Her heartbeat began to race. She checked her rearview again. The sedan was there, trailing her. She didn't know what to do. She pressed the gas pedal, hoping he'd fall behind, but he stayed close. "I'm not crazy. He's following me." She turned right onto a side street, trying to lose him, but the sedan followed, no matter where she went. Her anxiety turned into panic. She reached for her phone, hands shaking as she dialed 911. 911 operator. 911, what's your emergency? Emily, voice shaking. "I'm being followed. A man. I don't know, but I think he's been following me since Costco. He's still behind me and I don't know what to do." 911 operator. "All right, stay calm. Can you tell me where you are?" Emily, quickly glancing around. "I'm on street name and near the convenience store. I don't know what to do. He's just following me. I think he's trying to... I don't know." 911 operator. "We've got an officer on the way. Keep your doors locked, stay in the car, and don't stop until we get there. Are you able to see the car?" Emily, looking at the mirror. "Yes, I can see it. It's a gray sedan. It's been behind me for a while now." 911 operator. "All right, we're dispatching someone to your location. Stay on the line with me, okay?" Emily kept her grip tight on the wheel, her knuckles turning white. The gray sedan was still there, trailing her like a shadow. The sirens cut through the night, and relief flooded her for a brief moment. She turned into a brightly lit parking lot, parking as close to the entrance as she could. The gray sedan followed her, parking a few rows away. Emily didn't wait. She got out of the car and rushed toward the store entrance, trying to keep her movements calm and steady. She saw the officers pull into the lot, lights flashing. They were here. Officer 1. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Emily, sighing in relief. "Yes, I think so. But he's still out there. He followed me from Costco. I didn't know what to do." Officer 2, looking across the parking lot at the gray sedan. "Stay here. We'll take care of it." The officers approached the sedan cautiously, their hands on their guns as they moved toward the vehicle. Emily watched, her heart pounding. A few tense minutes passed before one of the officers returned. "Officer 1, we've got a record on the car. It's registered to someone who has a history of harassment and stalking. We've had reports about him before." Emily, shocked. "Harassment? You mean he's done this to other people?" Officer 1, "Yes, ma'am. We'll be looking into it. You did the right thing by calling us. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again." The following days passed in a blur. Emily was shaken by what had happened, but the officers kept her updated. They'd found the man's information and were investigating further. He'd been flagged by the police before for similar behavior, but there wasn't enough evidence to make an arrest. Though she felt relief that she wasn't completely alone in this, the unease lingered. Every time she left her house, she checked her surroundings. She still went to Costco, but she was always more aware of the people around her now. Emily had learned to trust her instincts. She had acted when she felt unsafe, and that made all the difference. I still don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe it's because that night keeps coming back to me, or because I have so many questions that will probably never get answered. But then again, maybe I should just let it go before I drive myself crazy. That night at Costco was nothing like the others, and I don't think I'd believe it either if I hadn't experienced it myself. It started like any normal evening. I was on my way home from work around 8:30 p.m. and decided to stop at Costco for a few things. The store was closing in about half an hour, so I figured I'd be in and out quickly. As I parked, I noticed the lot was unusually empty. There were only a few cars scattered around, but I didn't think much of it. Maybe it was just a slow night. I grabbed my membership card and walked inside. The usual Costco smells of roasted chicken and fresh bread filled the air, and the store seemed normal at first. The lights were bright, the hum of refrigerators in the background, and everything seemed just as it should be. But then I realized something odd. The place was eerily quiet. There wasn't a single person in sight. Not a soul checking membership cards at the door. No one pushing carts through the aisles. The store was completely empty. I stood there for a moment, trying to make sense of it. "Hello?" I called out. My voice echoed through the empty aisles, but there was no response. My shoes squeaked on the smooth concrete as I made my way farther into the store. Carts were left abandoned in the middle of the aisles, filled with groceries as if someone had just dropped them and walked off in a hurry. It didn't make sense. The store was still open. The lights were on. The shelves were stocked. Where was everyone? I checked my phone. It was 8:34 p.m. There were still 26 minutes before closing time. "Hello?" I called out again, louder this time. Nothing. As I walked down the aisles, I started to notice more strange details. A loaf of bread was lying crushed on the floor, as though someone had stepped on it. In the electronics section, there was a half-empty cup of coffee sitting on a shelf, still warm. In the produce area, a bunch of grapes had spilled onto the floor, abandoned as if someone had dropped them and walked away. It was like everyone had vanished without a trace. Then I heard it. A faint tapping noise coming from the far end of the store. At first, it was almost inaudible, but as I walked closer, the sound grew louder. It was a rhythmic tapping, like someone drumming their fingers on a table. "Is there anyone here?" I asked, my voice shaky. The tapping stopped abruptly. I froze, feeling a strange chill spread over me. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I didn't want to stick around to figure out what was going on. I turned toward the exit, but when I reached the doors, they wouldn't open. I waved my hand in front of the sensor. Nothing. I pushed on the glass, but it didn't budge. Panic started to rise in my chest. When I came in, the doors had worked fine. I pulled out my phone again, but there was no signal, not even a bar. "What the hell?" I whispered to myself. I looked around again, the only noise coming from the low hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. That's when I saw it, a piece of paper, sitting in the middle of the main aisle, near the paper towel section. It hadn't been there before. Hesitant, I picked it up. It was a note, scribbled in messy handwriting. "Don't look back." My hands trembled as I read it. What did it mean? Was someone trying to warn me? Then I heard a noise behind me, a loud clang that echoed through the store. I spun around, instinctively glancing back, despite the note's warning. Standing at the far end of the aisle was a man in a Costco employee vest, but something was off. He stood there, motionless, with his back to me. His posture was stiff, unnatural. It was like he wasn't even alive. "Hey," I called out, my voice shaky. "What's going on? Where is everyone?" He didn't respond. As I took a step closer, I noticed that his head was tilted at an odd angle, as if he was craning to look at something above him. "Hey!" I tried again. He didn't move, but then the lights flickered. The entire aisle plunged into darkness, and when they came back on, the man was gone. My heart raced in my chest. I felt a cold, heavy sense of dread settling over me. I turned to leave, but then I heard the tapping again. It was louder this time, more frantic, like someone was drumming their fingers on a table in quick succession. My mind raced and I started to run, desperately searching for a way out. The tapping followed me, growing louder with each step. That's when I heard a voice. It was faint, almost a whisper, but it was clear enough to send a chill down my spine. "What keeps you here?" I froze in front of the warehouse doors, which were slightly ajar. There was a dim light coming from inside. Against my better judgment, I pushed the doors open and stepped into the warehouse. It was enormous, with shelves stretching into the distance. The light was weak, flickering like a dying bulb. The air felt heavy and suffocating. In the center of the floor there was another piece of paper. This one read, "It's watching you." My heart pounded. What was watching me? I looked around, but there was no sign of anything. That's when I saw it. Up on one of the high shelves, there was something perched like a bird. Its shape was human-like, but its limbs were unnaturally long and its head was tilted at a strange angle. Its eyes, if you could call them eyes, glowed dimly in the low light. And then it smiled. A slow, sickening grin spread across its face as it stared directly at me. I stumbled backward, tripping over something on the floor and falling hard onto the cold concrete. My legs were shaking, but I managed to scramble to my feet. When I looked up again, it was gone. But there, next to me, was yet another note, written in the same frantic handwriting. "It won't let you leave." I didn't wait around to find out what it meant. I ran back to the exit doors, which opened without issue this time. I bolted to my car, jumped in, and sped away, glancing in the rearview mirror. The parking lot was completely empty now and the store was dark. I don't know what happened that night. I've told a few people, but they just brushed it off. They say I was probably just tired or maybe even dreaming. But I know what I saw. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I wonder about that thing in the warehouse. What was it? Why was it there? And what happened to everyone else? I haven't been back to Costco since. I don't think I could, because every time I drive past, I can't help but wonder, what if it's still inside?